Hello, Deb. Thank you so much for coming to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited and so honored to be on your podcast. We're going to have a great conversation.
Oh, thank you. Certainly. Now, where in the world are you tuning in from, Deb?
So I am in Hotlanta, and it's funny if I'm down in Atlanta, Georgia, but I am originally from Colorado.
Excellent. Hotlanta. I bet it's just wild out there right now.
Oh, the temperature is only 87, but I'm guessing it's probably about 90% humidity. So bleh.
Oh, when you have the humidity like that, it gets hot pretty
Mhm,
fast.
mhm.
That's for
Makes my
sure.
hair curly. Makes my hair
Yeah.
curly.
Well, it looks beautiful.
Thanks.
Well, good. So let's talk a little bit about your story. So,
Mhm.
let's dive right in. Where where can we begin here? What are some of the things that you have persevered through that have turned you into the powerhouse you are today?
Well, oh my gosh, I know that you are a two-time cancer survivor. Yay! I was initially diagnosed back in 2015 with breast cancer, and they said stage zero, easy peasy, not to worry. And then, things kind of progressed as they do. Turns out my diagnosis is stage four, triple positive metastatic breast cancer. So I was like, well, that's not very nice. Um,
No.
I long ago, maybe before you were even born, good golly, I worked for the American Cancer Society and for an oncologist. So I tell people I know just enough to be dangerous, right? The word metastatic and things like that start popping up, and I know the danger, danger. Um,
Certainly.
I chose to go with the traditional type of treatment. I was going to do chemo, I was going to do surgery, and then I was going to do radiation. Um,
Hmm.
Decided since we were all of a sudden pretty catastrophic type of diagnosis.
Hmm.
Chemo was first, and we did a large dose. It was supposed to be over, it was supposed to be multiple doses, but the first dose was 8 different drugs, and it about did me in. I got a complication that at that point I was the only person that ever survived it, because you didn't realize what was going on until it was too late. I ended up in septic shock, and which is about fatal 75% of the time, just not good. But my doctors were obviously on the ball. But I remember thinking, excuse me, I get to vote, and really
Hmm.
thinking, yeah, this no, whatever. I have stuff I have to do, right?
Yeah.
And so multiple surgeries, lots of time in the hospital, all sorts of fun things. Then got out, had my double mastectomy, got a complication from that my surgeon had never seen, because again, special child, right? um
Hmm.
and it was nothing major. It was just like, well, this was unusual.
Hmm.
And then sailed through radiation, which they were all really surprised at, because my complexion, I am a freckled redhead, and
Hmm.
we were fully prepared for the fact that I would have issues. They would bring other doctors in because they were just so astounded that I had nothing, and they'd poke, and I'm like, stop it. you
Yeah.
know? um, but yeah, I mean, the whole time I kept working. I tell people hospitals and doctors' offices have really good Wi-Fi. As long as I had my laptop or my phone, I just kept going. Several years ago, was back in the doctor's office, and they said, "How you doing?" I said, "Well, I got this thing on my arm." Turns out it was basal cell carcinoma, which is really pretty easy to treat, right? I didn't
Yeah.
even have a stitch. He just went zit zit, and that was that. But now I get to do the strip and spin every 6 months, as I fondly call it.
Hmm.
And then last year I was diagnosed with a third cancer. So I had thyroid cancer. We found
Hmm.
it looking for something else, didn't find that, but they said, oh, by the way. And the nice thing, and it is a new cancer, it's not from the breast cancer. So but the nice thing was we caught it so early that aside from removing my thyroid, didn't have to do that icky nasty treatments that they do. They glow in the dark, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, you keep going, right? That's the whole thing. You just go, really? And then you go on.
Mhm. Yeah, isn't that the truth, Deb? I had two cancers, and so I recall a lot of those kind of like okay, all right, let's do this
Yeah.
again. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
What are
yeah.
we gonna do here?
And there's annoyance, right? When they called and
Certainly.
said that I had thyroid cancer, I said words that we shouldn't say.
Yeah.
Right. And my doctor laughed and she said, see, that's why you'll be just fine.
Hmm.
But yeah, it really is, more annoyance than anything. I'm like, seriously, again.
I know. Deb, there's one thing that you said here that I really want to point out.
Mhm,
Your doctor said that's why you're going to be fine.
mhm,
And earlier in the story, you said, well, I got shit to do. Like, I've
mhm.
got places to
I
be.
know. I know.
I get a vote.
Mhm,
And I
mhm,
think that there is something so golden in that moment.
mhm. Right.
I believe that the power of the mind
Mhm,
is unbelievably
mhm.
strong, that it,
Right.
it it can be the determining factor
Mhm.
of how you do,
Right. Mhm.
you know?
Yeah,
And here you are. No, I got shit to do. I
I
get a
know.
vote here.
I literally told my doctor when she was giving me the diagnosis, I'm sorry, that's not on my schedule. You
Yeah.
know, she looked at me thinking, I don't know how to respond to this rather odd person.
Yeah.
But the oncologist that I worked for, now it's been 35 years probably since I worked for him. Um, and I handled his education programs, so not the medical side, but I
Okay.
remember he said 99% of this is in your head.
Mhm.
If you think you're going to get through this, however that course might be, because
Mhm.
sometimes it was not a long period of time, right? But he
Right.
said, if you think you're going to get through it, you'll get through it. If you think I'm going to die, then you will die.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember, I mean, we had patients who even 35 years ago told him, we're not going to do treatment. And he never tried to talk them into it. He made sure they had information, right? But
Yes.
then he said, what can I do?
Yeah.
And that just stuck with me because, especially 35 years ago, doctors didn't do that. They don't do that now.
No, they don't do
Um,
that now.
yeah, yeah,
Mm-mm.
and he was just, it was such a blessing to work with him, because his philosophy obviously stuck with me.
That is a beautiful philosophy. He sounds like a fantastic man.
Mhm,
And really, really well versed
mhm.
in just the way the world works,
Right,
not
right.
just on his
Mhm,
pedestal, which you
mhm,
see with
mhm.
oncologists at
Right. Oh,
times.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I discovered that fairly recently he passed away, and it just
Oh,
made me very sad. But I of course realized, okay, he was probably, I think he would have been in his 80s at least.
yeah.
How we kind of, 35 years ago I thought, oh,
Yeah.
he was, and so he didn't age in my mind, and so I was a little,
Yeah.
but it really was such a blessing to work with him because
Certainly.
he treated the patients, and I tell people, we are people, we're not patients, and that was always his philosophy.
Oh, I had a similar oncologist. He was just fantastic, is fantastic.
Mm-hmm,
And he was trained in the UK, and I decided to do conventional therapy
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and non-conventional
mm-hmm,
therapy in
mm-hmm.
combination.
Right.
And he was trained in the UK, and he said, you know what, I've seen this before. And I
Ah.
was so grateful
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
to him and his openness.
mm-hmm,
Because, if I would have been stuck with kind of one of those kind of more
mm-hmm.
stuck in their
This is the
ways
book, this is what it
box in the
says.
book,
Mm-hmm,
exactly.
mm-hmm,
I think I would have had a more
mm-hmm.
difficult time. So
Right,
I'm really grateful. I
right.
think that the oncologist makes a big
Mm-hmm.
difference.
It
Yeah,
does. And the thing is, we don't have to necessarily like our doctors, but we definitely have to trust them.
certainly.
And there are three that actually there are four that I was like, nope, not going back to you. One was the initial surgeon, and he saved my life. He went in, he did what he needed to, but I did not like him. He did not like me.
Yeah.
And it was like, no, no, just gonna switch. And I switched to a different general surgeon who I would walk on fire for. That man
Yeah.
is just, he's phenomenal. Anybody that you say his name, they go, right.
Oh,
But
wow.
more importantly, his wife has breast cancer. And so he truly understands. But yeah, I mean, he's just, and my oncologist also, I had treatment yesterday. And so I, popped in and saw my oncologist, and she's like, "Hi, darling, how are you? Love you. How you doing?" Now I've been with her for 9 years,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's, you have to have that team around you, your medical team, your supporters, whoever, who are going to support you. And
Mhm.
if they can't get behind that, then wish them well.
Yes, certainly. I couldn't agree more. Now, I'm interested in the stage 4 metastatic
Mm-hmm.
diagnosis to remission,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yes.
now
Mm-hmm.
and now we're back in, but quick and
Mm-hmm.
not painless, but
Mm-hmm.
this kind of in and out sort of
Mm-hmm.
situation
Mm-hmm.
here. Metastatic isn't generally something people are cured from. What was your belief around that?
Well, and technically, they don't consider stage 4 breast cancer as curable. It's just kind of always there, that shadow, right? That's lurking back there. But I've made it past several of the big points,
Certainly.
and I did not have a lump, a bump, anything like that. I had little tiny specks that were there, and it was very unusual. The computer actually saw them, but every scan I had after that first big massive chemo has been clear. I mean, it really was a surprise to find the thyroid cancer. And I was very specific when I talked to my endocrinologist. Now I have Dr. Bingo. I have like all of these various doctors, right? And so my endocrinologist for my thyroid cancer, I said, "Now, is this a reoccurrence?" And he said, "No,
Mm.
thyroid cancer is always a primary." And I thought, okay, I didn't know if that was good or bad, but it was like, okay.
Yeah.
Actually, I preferred that to the cancer had spread.
Mm.
And so and there probably were several reasons why I had thyroid cancer, not the least of which was the radiation. And I did have family history of thyroid cancer.
Okay.
So that could have been something that we should have been watching and weren't. But it's to me, I don't have cancer. I just don't. It might be there and it might be lurking, but it's like, okay, we'll deal with that if and when that time comes up. But until then, no, I don't have cancer. And I think that really is the mindset is, you just, okay, now we just go on.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. Excellent. I love that mindset. And so how has going on felt, moving forward,
Yeah,
and what are some of the
it's
ways
been a
that impacted
challenge.
you?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
has been a challenge. And it's been a challenge more from the septic shock.
Yeah.
That damaged my kidneys pretty good. And and I had to have multiple surgeries. I'm hollow now. I mean, this is kind of like, and people like, "Woo, you lost weight." I'm like, "No, not the way you want to," right? But and I actually had one person, it was so funny. I dropped about 50 pounds and through a variety of things but and I
Including missing organs, I'm sure.
yes
Yeah.
but I went to a networking event, and this woman who didn't know what had been going on said, "Oh my gosh, you look great, you've lost weight." And all I said was, "Thank you so much," right?
Mhm.
And she said, and there are other people around me who knew what was going on, and she
Right.
said, "Well, what's your secret?" And I just kind of didn't say anything. And so then she pressed, and I said, "Well, I've been ill." And she didn't need to know. And she puts her hands on her hips, and she gets this, and she says, "I can't believe you won't share your secret." And I said, "Well, I almost died 3 times, and I've had multiple surgeries. Have at it." And she, of
Oh,
course,
goodness.
slunk off. But that is kind of one of the, you never know what people are going to say, right?
No.
I didn't have reconstructive surgery, and that is one of the things people look, right? And you're like,
Of course.
would you look at something else? If you had prostate cancer or something, are you going to look to see if the gentleman still has his parts?
Mhm.
And but it's I do have obviously some lasting effects. I
Certainly.
have chronic pain and some other issues, but you just keep going. I do at kind of like 2 weeks ago I had my 34th 34 surgical procedure. And that my body is saying, no, we're not doing this again. You know, it just, my brain gets a little more scrambled every time. I refuse to admit that's because of age. And,
Fair.
you know, but it's, one of the things that you learn is you absolutely have to know what your boundaries are
Mhm.
and communicate those. You know, when I hit the wall, it's okay, I can hit the wall and stop, or I can hit the wall, keep going, and have a problem. You know, and so and knowing I just, you know, I cannot do that. That's going to be too long a day, or you know, all these various things. And again, it's like, you know, having your tribe of supporters around you. If people are like, no, I need you to keep doing this, no. You know, and obviously my husband has been such a huge source of support, and he knows
Absolutely.
when I am in the chair with the blanket and the heating pad, it's done for the daytime. You know,
Mhm.
but you know, it is also about thinking we have to keep going. You know, one of the things that I have instituted is we have to go on an adventure once a month.
Mm.
And sometimes that's, you know, we go for an hour, sometimes we go for a day, sometimes we go like for a weekend, right? But you know, and sometimes we go for big adventures. I just booked a cruise. And
Wonderful.
but yeah, it's, you know, get out and do as much as you can.
Yeah.
You know, and the bucket list needs to be sooner rather than later.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Beautifully said, Deb. I agree with you completely. And I think that, um, well, I know that cancer really does reshape for a person the waiting for someday.
Hmm.
That just
Right,
dissolves
right,
because
right.
someday becomes a
Hmm.
possibility, not a
Hmm.
probability.
Right,
And
right.
so then you get to this place
Hmm.
where you're like, you know what? I don't care.
Hmm.
We don't maybe
Hmm.
totally have the funds for this,
Hmm.
or maybe I
Right.
don't feel slim enough for
Hmm.
this, this X, Y, and
Hmm.
Z just yet, or
Hmm.
whatever it is that you're having
Hmm.
trouble with, and you would normally postpone.
Hmm.
It's just no, just do it now.
Right.
Enjoy it now.
Or figure out something different. I mean, like maybe you thought, I want to go on an around the world cruise. Well,
Mm,
that's going to cost a lot of money, right?
fair.
And
Yeah.
time and all of those various things. Okay. Well, maybe you join your local museum and you learn, you know, you do all of that. You know, what can you do? And you know, even if you're just doing it on your TV, you know, or your, you know, all of those various things, how can you modify that? You know, and the other thing that I did was I tried as much as possible, because you can't always do it, to get rid of the toxic people, right?
Mm.
You know,
So
those
rather than the
people.
toxins, we got the
I
toxic people.
know we get the toxic people who, the gloom and doomies, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I'm down here in the States, and holy schmoly, have we got lots of stuff going on down here right now. So,
Fair.
you know, I try to not watch the negative parts of TV. Now, I love the fact that as we are recording this, the Olympics are on. Right, you know, because
Mm-hmm.
those are just so incredibly uplifting to watch
Certainly.
those. You know, and so how can we, you know, make things more positive in our lives? You know, but yeah, it's, what can we do? And more importantly, how can we help others? I think that is one of the things. You know, I post an inspirational saying twice a day, and you know, on Facebook and all sorts of things. Just, you know, how can we help others?
Isn't that the truth? I'm hearing a lot of the key points to resiliency that you are doing here, and maybe unknowingly, maybe knowingly, turning your space into a more positive
Hmm.
one, helping others, become finding meaning. I'm curious about the meaning.
Hmm.
How do you feel, and isn't an appropriate question to ask how you feel about the meaning of why this may have happened to you and how you can kind of move forward in
Hmm.
life?
You do wonder. You know, it's one of those things where you think, did I do this to myself? Could I have done something different? You know, and I did do the genetic testing. I don't have the BRCA gene. My grandmother had breast cancer, but you know, and that was long enough ago. We didn't do genetic testing, but yeah, I don't have any of the markers. So you know, there is kind of that guilt. There's also a lot of anger. let's be honest, right?
Yes.
We kind of
Yes.
laugh about being annoyed, but there's an underlying current of I am pissed.
Yeah.
And it's okay to feel that. I had somebody tell me one time, honor those feelings and give myself the grace to do that. And to have the pity parties too. But the key is have that pity party and then get out of it. Whatever it takes to do that. But it's there are definitely times where I think, what did I do? And especially one of the times when I was going back in, and it was one of my big catastrophic surgeries. I didn't cry. I mean, I don't cry a lot. I mean, when I was diagnosed, all of that stuff, I was like, ugh. But I remember looking at my husband and bursting into tears and saying, what did I do to deserve this? Well, then of course that upset him, so then I felt even worse. But yeah, it was like, really, what did I do? And of course we didn't. None of us did anything to deserve any of this. But it is okay to kind of have that little bit of guilt about it.
Certainly. There's no question. Absolutely. And, I know that that has crossed my mind multiple times
Hmm.
as well, and as a young person, I just, you wonder,
Hmm.
what did I
Right.
do incorrectly
Hmm.
that other people
Hmm.
didn't, or whatever
Right.
it was.
Well, and especially with your age and your youth, because some of this is more of an old person diagnosis, right? And so you do think, wait a minute, what the heck?
Right. Certainly. Yes. And I know that those emotions cross my mind a lot.
Hmm.
One thing that was really powerful is I had a counselor who was also
Hmm.
a cancer survivor.
Hmm. Hmm.
Most spectacular counselor I've ever had. And she talked a lot about how in the beginning she would look out the window and she would see
Hmm.
people walking by, and she would have so much anger inside of
Hmm.
her that would say, "Why me, not them?
Right. Hmm.
Why me and not them?"
Hmm.
You know? And she said, "I felt so much guilt
Hmm.
for wishing that it wasn't me and them
Hmm.
instead." And she
Right.
said, and it took me a long time to get over that.
Hmm.
But she said, this is to err is human. This is normal.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
natural to feel this way.
Right.
And she said, and the quicker that you can get through this anger
Hmm.
period of time,
Hmm.
um, the better you'll be off. And the
Hmm.
only way to get through that anger period of time is to honor the fact that
Hmm.
it's okay that you're
Right.
angry.
Right. And maybe we got this because we can deal with it.
There you are. There you are. And see another beautiful point of resilience. Maybe we got this because we can deal with it.
Hmm.
I think
Hmm.
that the most resilient people that I have ever met, and you are truly one of them, Deb, is are people who are able to find the positivity, which you are bubbling with,
Hmm.
that are able to find meaning behind why this may have happened to them,
Hmm.
to turn it to help other people.
Hmm.
All of these really, really important points that truly create a pain to
Hmm.
power
Hmm.
situation. So for the cancer survivors listening, or the cancer patients listening,
Hmm.
because I know I have a lot of people with
Hmm.
cancer that
Hmm.
listen to the podcast. Um, truly, what are some of the advice pieces that you might give to yourself,
Hmm.
now years in the future,
Hmm.
in your initial diagnosis, in those
Right.
first
Hmm.
moments?
I think one of the big things is step away from the computer, right? When they told me I had
Beautiful.
microcalcifications, I had no idea what that even meant. So of course you go to Dr. Google, right? And then you're like, oh my God, oh, total
Gotta love
overwhelm.
Dr. Google.
Oh yes, oh yes. And but it is, it can be so incredibly overwhelming, not only from researching online to every person you talk to has a resource for you, right? They have a
Mm,
book, they have a friend, they have a this, they have a that, and it can just get very overwhelming. So then you like withdraw, right? I'm not going to talk to you. No, that's the worst thing. We have to have our tribe around us.
mhm.
But I don't, one of the things I think about is, if I had known about all the complications I would have, would I still have that first go round of treatment? I probably would have. Just because
Okay.
my mindset was the traditional route. and it really was. I mean, it was just a total fluke that I got it. My doctor had someone else who died from it, and so
Mm.
she knew immediately what the heck was going on, and that was what saved my life.
Wow.
But so, whoever that person was, thank you. But
Mhm.
it's, I think there's still kind of the, you keep remembering to take life easy. One of the things I still have a challenge with is that little word called delegating.
Mm.
I don't have to try and do everything.
Yeah.
And so, especially from a business, I have several big volunteer projects that I do. And to know they can help, let them help, honor them by having them help, and then step back, which is, it's really been funny because they're not used to me doing that, so they're waiting
Mm.
for me to either take over, which I probably did in the past, right,
Right.
or they just are, and I keep telling them, I have faith in you. It's great to keep me in the loop, but these are your decisions. I am fine with that. And
Mhm.
I have yet to find anywhere I've said, maybe not so much. But yeah, I'm very type A, and so to
Yeah.
delegate and trust others has been a little bit of a challenge.
And an opportunity for growth,
For
certainly.
all of us, right?
Yes, yes. Now tell us a little bit about some of your volunteer things, your business, things that you are
Mhm.
doing right now.
Yeah. So my business is Wise Women Communications. We're a full service agency. We tend to focus on how we can use social media as a marketing tool, right? But it's and I have a lot of fun with that. Fabulous clients who have been with me this whole time, and continually say, "What can we do?" Because I'm
Mm.
still in treatment. I go in every 21 days and then, and have an infusion. I have a port in my shoulder. And so I'm down for the count for a day or two, and they're perfectly fine with that. They're like, what do we need to do? So I love that. One of the
Mhm.
strange things that I do as a volunteer is I am on the board and I lead several big projects for the National Beagle Club of America, like the dogs, right?
Okay.
And so we do that. And then a couple years ago, I started an initiative called tryingnottodie.LIVE, and more that is taking over my time, and that's all right. But it is about, the name comes from the fact that when we have a diagnosis like this, we get so caught up in trying to not die that we forget that we have to live. Whether it's 5 hours, 5 years, 50 years, how are we going to live during that time frame? What are we going to do? And sometimes it really is just getting through the day, right? But others is like, how can we make a difference? All of those various things, and we have a lot of fun with it. It's growing slowly because I want it to grow slow. I don't want to have, millions of people who are part of it, because I like being in touch with everybody. But it's
Mm.
about providing resources and support to anyone on their cancer journey. Our symbol is a warrior. She
Mhm.
has, put her sword in the ground in front of her, right? She's kneeling and she's put her sword down. She's drawn the line. The line is here, and she's looking forward. She is not in any way subservient. But that the warrior comes from, when I was first diagnosed, somebody sent me this thing and it says, fate says to the warrior, you cannot withstand the storm. And the warrior responds, I am the storm. But my concept, and so I tell people, I'm not a patient. I am a warrior. I get annoyed when they call me, ooh, the patient. I'm like, but more importantly, we as warriors never stand alone. We have to have our tribe around us. And so that's part of what we do is we work with medical people, with others. One of the big things I get is people contact me and say, my friend, my spouse, my coworker was diagnosed and I don't know what to do. And so then
Yes.
what they do is nothing, right? Or they say, Christine, just tell me if you need anything. And your
Mm.
brain shorted out, right? You can't do that. But, for one thing, tell people, I'm sorry. I am sorry you're going through this, right?
Mm.
Acknowledge it. There's that elephant. You can't ignore it. But then be specific. Can I bring you dinner on Thursday? Can I do your grocery shopping? Can I take your kids to a movie? We had somebody that said, we know that you guys have been really, really busy. Did your dogs need to go get their shots? And they did. But yeah, be specific when you're helping somebody. One of my friends said that she was a caregiver for her husband, and her friends showed up one day and said, "We're here to clean your house." And she said, my first thought was I was absolutely mortified. And then I thought, nah, they need to. And so they did. They came in and they cleaned. So,
Beautiful.
whatever you can do, be specific, but don't think, oh, I don't want to talk to them. I don't want to bring it up. We know it's there. I mean, it's somebody compared it to death, right? That person, you need to acknowledge it. It's perfectly fine. We know it's there. So it's okay to say, how you feeling? What you doing today? And things like that.
Oh, what an impactful. I love what you're doing with this. And I love the dot live. I thought
Hmm.
I that is such a cool
Well,
play.
and it's funny because I'm a marketing person, and
Mm,
so I was going to be .com, right? Because
right.
that's what everybody does. It's taken. Even though somebody's not, well, I actually own it now, but when I started, somebody else had it. I made them an
Ah,
offer, and they wanted several digits more.
oh,
And I said, oh no, this is just something that's in my brain. I am not gonna. She wanted $5,000 for it, and I was like,
oh, geez.
but she has. I since now own it. But live is an acronym, right? And it was so
Yeah.
funny because GoDaddy, when a URL is taken, it makes suggestions, and I got to live, and I went, well, duh.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, right. Really, it's like we should have thought of that. But it's about we have to lead our tribe. We have to invigorate our souls. We have to put ourselves first, right? We have to voice our feelings. We have to be honest. How many times do people say, Christine, how are you? And you say, fine.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we're
Yeah.
fine, maybe we're not, right? Fine
Right.
to me is a 4-letter word. So we have to be honest. People can't help us if we can't say, I'm this way. And then we have to elevate our mindset. That's the E, knowing that no matter what, we're going to be okay.
Well, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. That is amazing. And again, it is you turning your pain into a power,
Mhm.
and such an impactful one where you are helping others and making a really big difference. And it's interesting that it's growing and it's kind of pushing out these other things that you're
Mhm.
doing.
Right,
And
right.
it's becoming
Mhm.
something that you are centering a little bit more on.
Mhm.
It sounds to me a lot like a gift, perhaps maybe a dharma, as they call it, or,
Mhm.
a life purpose of some
Mhm.
kind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
And no matter what, when someone contacts me, I am very honored, to be able to help them in whatever way. I had a friend, and young woman in her 20s, who was diagnosed, and she said, I have to get a port. I have absolutely no idea what it is. So I took pictures of my port. And and of course I'm thinking the doctor should be providing that, but of course they don't. Sometimes they don't, right? And then other people, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And my big thing is, again, education. Make the decisions that you want to make, but know that you've made them because they were what's best for you.
right. What a wonderful, wonderful piece of advice. Is there any final pieces of advice that you'd like to leave? I would like to add the tryingnottodie.LIVE. I will add
Mhm.
that to the show notes,
Perfect. Thank you.
if that's all right with you.
Oh,
Perfect.
lovely. And we do have
So
a Facebook group, and the links are there.
excellent.
So I would love for you to join. I think that would be fabulous.
Thank you.
Um, it really is, you are in charge. This is
Mm,
your journey. No one else is taking it, and you need to do what feels best for you.
excellent. I couldn't agree more. And that spans all diseases. So thank you
Mhm.
so much for being here, for being so brave, and for being so bubbly. I just love your energy. It is
One cup of coffee.
fantastic. Well, there you go. That helps a lot, eh?
Well, again, I am so honored to be a guest because you have such a wonderful program.
Thank you. Thank you, Deb.